purpose of this video is to minimize any confusion you may have about the upcoming Unit 3 essay, and I want to walk you through that. It says in this essay you'll be analyzing and evaluating the causes of the American Revolution using both primary and secondary sources. All right. Now notice that you have these two assigned readings: the rights of British colonies asserted and approved, and Soame Jenyns and Samuel Johnson. Let me make it clear that these are primary sources. So, you've got some images later on in this assignment, and the images too are primary sources. But so are the texts here. In fact, these texts are probably, along with your textbook, the most important sources for this assignment. And of course, your textbook is a secondary source, but these two documents are primary sources. So I would expect you to get most of the information you need for your essay from these two primary sources and the textbook. So the assignment down here, if we can scroll down a little bit farther, this is the key information I'm looking for. Identify the main arguments used by supporters and opponents of American independence and why each side thought their viewpoint was correct. Then identify the events portrayed in each of the three images and explain why they occurred, and combined with what happened after each event, show how they encouraged support for independence. Now, the way this is described is that it sounds like you're going to be talking a great deal about the three images. But you are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to talk about the events portrayed in each of the three images. That's why I think this assignment is a bit confusing, and I'm trying to clear up the confusion here. You are supposed to talk about the events represented by these images, not the images themselves. And so obviously this last one is the Stamp Act, and then you have the Boston Massacre here, and then you have a document that you'll have to interpret, Bostonians paying the excise man, and you'll have to figure out what law they were protesting here. And so when you're talking about the events represented by these images, you're going to have to focus a great deal on the information in these documents. The first document is the colonial position. The colonists are explaining their position. And in the second document, these two individuals are British individuals. This is the British position, the anti-colonial position. And so you'll have to talk about both of these men and their positions on the controversies involving the incidents that these pictures simply represent. So don't get hung up on the detail of the pictures and what the pictures are showing in detail. This one doesn't show much in detail at all, except the skull and crossbones. Instead, focus on the ideas for and against the revolution, because the question you're going to have to answer is explained here. What are the main arguments used by supporters and opponents of American independence? The pictures don't show any arguments, but the written documents do. Then identify the events portrayed in each of the three images. Again, the events are also described by the documents, not by the images. Well, the images portray them, but they don't really describe them very well. They do so slightly. For example, in the case of the Paul Revere image, that is pure propaganda, and it distorts the true meaning of the event it portrays. And you will want to mention that in your essay, how it distorts it. Not just that it does distort it, but how does it distort it? But by and large, most of what you talk about in your essay should be drawn from the textual sources. To a degree, the secondary source we call the textbook, but primarily the two primary sources here that are in text, the colonial position and the British position, and make clear what these two documents are talking about, what events these two documents are talking about, what kinds of taxes these two documents are talking about, and when. And just so it's clear, most of your discussion will focus on the 1760s, because the events of the 1770s are not discussed in these documents or in these pictures. You can make a few references to events in the 1770s, but most of your discussion will be on events in the 1760s, with a predominant focus on these two documents and their contrasting positions. So I hope this helps you with the Unit 3 essay.